Hello and welcome to Theatre.Reviews with Paul Severn. I'm here at the Barbican to see A Strange Loop. A Strange Loop is a fascinating scientific theory, and the musical by Michael R. Jackson that it has inspired is just as interesting. Before I tell you about my evening inside the brain of a fat, queer, black theatre usher, his words, I should warn you that it's theatre far more experimental than you might expect from a Tony Award-winning Best Musical, and quite possibly the filthiest play currently on a London stage. If you can handle both these elements, you might quite enjoy it. I know I did, but not as much as I hoped. Keep watching and I'll tell you why, and also attempt an explanation of the concept of a strange loop. The main character in A Strange Loop is Usher, who is an usher in a Broadway theatre where The Lion King is performing. He's played here at the Barbican by Kyle Ramar Freeman. He's on stage the whole time and gives a phenomenal singing and acting performance. His character is sweet, vulnerable and, yes, self-loathing, but also full of pathos. As he tries to write a play, he's assailed by various thoughts, played by 6 actors called Thoughts 1 to 6. They might be memories or fears or desires, but the key point is they're all in his head, giving him ideas of what he might write about, or more likely, what he shouldn't write about, which is the truth about what goes on in his brain. Early on, the idea is expressed that Usher is writing a play about an usher writing a play about an usher writing a play, and so on. Now, this suggested to me, anyway, that new and slightly different ushers would take over each new writing as you go down some kind of rabbit hole. In fact, it's more of an analogy for what happens, because what we see is a series of trips into Usher's brain and his thoughts about the play. Any playwriting that goes on is always by the same usher. Michael R. Jackson wrote the book, music and lyrics, and is clearly a talented man. The music is fairly straightforward pop. The lyrics can be a bit clunky at times, but they're amusing, touching, and often very rude, including frequent references to anal sex, albeit using a stronger expression. But the book, in other words the underlying story, characters and dialogue, is verging on a masterpiece. No wonder it won a Pulitzer Prize. There's a lot of comedy in what happens. Usher has some uncomfortable conversations with his parents about the sin of being gay and about how they think he should write a more popular kind of play, a gospel play. It's also amusing that in his mind, his mother refers to his father as Mufasa. A handsome stranger shows an interest in him and appears to be attracted to him, but then turns out to be a figment of his imagination. Some of the things going on in his brain are either not funny or have a sharp edge to the humour. His self-loathing is prominent and manifests itself in a sense of inferiority to white people, among others. So we have a fairly amusing scene in which he's rejected by everybody on a dating app because of his small penis, and a highly distressing scene in which he's sexually abused by a white man. Now, I was prepared to go along with this because it was the truth about what was in his brain, and no one can be held responsible for their thoughts. Add to which the musical is written and acted by black people, but I was still extremely uncomfortable at the expressions of racism and homophobia. But I most definitely take issue with a feature in the programme that said the show's language wouldn't sit comfortably with your maiden aunt. Well, that's the kind of sexist expression that most people binned years ago. Can you imagine suggesting that an older man with no sexual experience would be easily shocked? And by the way, that's the only feature in an £8 programme with no colour photos of the show. I had a further problem with this musical, namely that it's rooted in black American culture, which I don't think travelled well across the Atlantic. There were numerous references to Tyler Perry as someone to aspire to. Now, I know him as a film actor, but I had no idea that he's a hugely successful producer of TV sitcoms and films aimed at black people in America. I think there were probably a few other perspectives on life which black and gay Americans might share, but which I felt excluded from. Of course, Usher's parents urge him to write an intersectional play, in other words, one that will cover ground where black and white interests intersect. If Mr. Jackson chooses not to, like his character Usher, then fair enough, it's my problem, not the show's. Stephen Brackett again directs, as he did on Broadway, and Raja Feather Kelly once again supplies the choreography. The result is a slick, pacey 100 minutes. The set by Arnulfo Maldonado is deceptively simple. It's a pretty bare stage with cubicle-style boxes from which characters emerge and disappear. I wondered if it was intended for a smaller, more intimate stage, until well into what might have been the second act, had there been an interval, there's a transformation, which is wondrous. Now, I don't want to say too much about it, but I gather it will mean even more if you're familiar with the oeuvre of Tyler Perry. Apart from the brilliant Ramar Freeman, the rest of the cast are, I think, British, but carry their American parts convincingly. That programme I mentioned could have done with an article explaining a little bit about the theory of the strange loop. So, to help you prepare for seeing this show, I've got a few words about the concept. It may or may not be helpful to refer you to the sentence, "This statement is false," or "Which came first, the chicken or the egg?" Both express going round and round an inescapable circle within your thought process. So, quite shocking at times, and more than a little confusing, but plenty of nice tunes, a good deal of laughter, and a fascinating deep dive into how the creative brain works. I give A Strange Loop 3 stars. I hope you found this review useful. If you did, why not like, comment or subscribe to my channel, and then you'll be the first to know about my future reviews. You can read my reviews on Theatre.Reviews, and you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and Mastodon. Thank you for watching.